Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined with Vijay Shankar from EY, who will talk around some of the use cases that we've got with IRPA and SAP in particular, and Hemant Rachh from the solution management side of the intelligent robotics process automation. Hi, I'm Mike Voorhees, COE for Office of CFO Solutions for SAP. And I want to take you through our quick agenda today. So I will give a brief introduction around the topics. Vijay will take us through some of the hyperautomation in finance use case scenarios. And Hemant will talk to us about why intelligent RPA from SAP. We will then follow that on with a brief poll and some Q&A. So let's get started. This particular picture here is a very common scene in what we see today with a lot of our customers. Business owners, executives, CFOs, sort of, looking rather distressed at the amount of extra work that they've got to do, the amount of manual work that they've still got to do in their business. And this is normally done manually. This is normally done after hours, and it puts a lot of pressure on people, on systems, on processes from that perspective. So this is still a common occurrence in a lot of organizations today. And it's certainly one that I don't aspire to. And we'll take you through what some of that vision looks like when we refer to the SAP solutions in that sense. So if this is a common theme in your business or in your organization, I think you'll get a lot out of what we're going to talk about today. My vision actually is more about more freedom. So being able to spend more time doing what I want to do and less time working on some of those mundane manual tasks, and being able to hopefully one day travel again. And, I'm sure that's an aspiration that a lot of us, want to be able to take on from that perspective. When I look at some of the analysts' comments, one thing that's coming through loud and clear is that 19% through automation and labor-induced processes, through automation, we could reduce that by an average of 19%. Now, that is just in the finance functions from that perspective. So that's a statistic taken from the Hackett Group some time ago. I'm sure those numbers are increasing every single day that we go through this particular process. So that's if you took 19% of your efficiencies and then put that to the bottom line, it's quite a significant number from that perspective. And then when I look at some of what the analysts are saying, some of the predictions is that in 2021, which is the year we're in, automation is going to become a business imperative. So it's not going to be just something nice to have. It's going to be something that you're going to need to have as part of your organization, as part of your everyday processes. And Vijay will take us through what some of those use cases look like in that sense from that perspective. Even IDC are looking at, by 2022, 45% of the repetitive work tasks will be automated. And from that perspective, and that's even going to grow as we go further. 2023, 75% of the global 2,000 IT organizations will adopt automation in one way, in one form or another. So it's not just us talking about it. Is actual. This is real. This is going to be part of what we do on a daily basis. And I can be quite honest about where I've come from in my career. I wish we had IRPA 20 or 30 years ago. I'd probably have a bit more hair than I do today, because it just makes life a lot easier. why does it become such an important piece of our landscape and of our lives today? And you can see here, we've charted the effort across high value tasks, repetitive tasks, and automation. And, you can see back in the 1960s, and I'm probably giving away some of my age here, that automation was pretty much non-existent. And, a lot of the things that we did back then was very, very manual. And, from writing up ledgers and trial balances and reports and everything that we take for granted today that at least some of the computers can do, but the task itself was very, very manual. So you could see there's a high repetition. It was the same thing every week, every month. And, we really didn't spend a lot of time on the business. Now let's fast forward gradually through the decades, and we get to the 2020s, where we're now starting to see an explosion of increase in automation. And guess what? That reduces the amount of time that we need to spend on repetitive tasks and gives us that time back in our day to be able to concentrate on high value assets, to become that trusted leader within the organization. And that helps us move from that industrial phase right through to now what we call the intelligent enterprise phase. And that's why it's important, because in today's economies, to become more resilient, to become more focused on outcomes, we need time to be able to do that. And the only way we're going to do it is by increasing automation. In that sense, when I put this really into perspective, and I put this really into the numbers from what we talk about, if you could take 50 to 60% of your tasks, and I'm talking just finance at the moment, that will effectively return a 20 to 35% run rate cost efficiency, and reduce the processing time of some of those tasks by 50 to 60%. So it doesn't take much to try and work out what that would equate to in dollar terms. Take your fully loaded cost and away you go, of labor and efficiencies in that space. So, it's quite very, very compelling. And in today's where, a lot of our companies are in a very, very competitive landscape, this is exactly what the CFOs are looking for. Do more with less, become less of a cost center for the business, and become more of a strategic advisor. And this is the way that we get to that particular, that's the way we get to that particular outcome from that perspective. I'm going to pass over to now Vijay, who'll take us through. He's a partner with EY, a practice leader in this space, very, very authoritative in IRPA and automation and what it can do in the finance space. So Vijay, over to you, and thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for joining in, and then thanks Mike and Hemant for inviting me into this interesting discussion this afternoon, morning, depending upon which region and which part of the world you are in. My name is Vijay Shankar. I'm a part of the EY consulting practice, support and deliver a number of finance transformation programs, especially in the intelligent automation and AI space. What I would like to cover in the next 10-15 minutes is a bit of more of what Mike talked about in terms of how you can apply hyperautomation within the finance function. And automation is not new for finance and not new for organizations, but the way that now the technology is transformed or brought together, it's kind of changing the way that the finance operates now as well as in future. So I'll try and touch upon 2-3 areas, but before that, I think it's important to demystify what we mean by hyperautomation. I think there are a number of definitions that are there in the market, and sometimes it can get another jargon, and we consultants love to use jargons. But I think somewhere, it's important to kind of bring that out. So Mike, if you could just move on to the next slide. Uh, when you look at hyper automation, what does it really mean? Automation, really started off within the finance area or any services area with RPA. Robotic process automation was, kind of the first entry point where a lot of companies looked at processes very differently and said, any mundane, repeatable tasks can be automated through robotic process automation. But over the last 3 years, as the automation needs kind of changed within organization, as well as the areas that one should go after, this this spectrum of automation started to expand. And you see this, the way that now hyper automation is being defined as is a process where, if you go from left to right, a process where you are able to run process mining, identify where processes are being um, deployed, or how it's been operated within the finance organization. Because finance organizations are global organizations. You might have shared services, you might not have shared services. There are different ways that the processes are being executed. But how do you use process mining to understand the depth and the width of finance processes, and able to understand opportunities where you need to improve upon or transform upon? Then how do you use then intelligent or artificial intelligence to make this more smarter, more better? uh, you know Over the last, I would say, a decade or so, the speed of which AI is kind of evolved, at the front end of a lot of work that clients do with in manufacturing, or even in customer, talk about driverless cars and stuff like that. I think the real meat in a lot of use cases that we are seeing in artificial intelligence is also in the finance area. And how do you now use artificial intelligence to unearth a lot of the inefficiencies that are there and apply them within the organizations to make this more better. And then when you move on to the next one is about BPMs, workflows. Typically workflows seem different within organizations, but as and when we see what future of finance look like, intelligent workflows and process management systems are going to be an integral part of how you look at hyper automation, and sometimes even the backbone of how you orchestrate processes across business units, shared services, geographies, and within the finance organization as well. And then finally, when you look at the far end, which is around the advanced analytics, and how do you kind of bring in a lot of machine learning and AI alongside with it, for you to drive better insights to businesses, better information that you can use, not just what's available within the organization or data that's available within the organization, but also kind of take data which is outside of the organization as well, and then drive better insights and better decision making alongside. Right now, this is what one I think there are different definitions the way that we probably would like to define this as hyper automation. But again, the key element in this is this power of these technologies are not made not just not being made available to a few people within the organization, but really every member or every team within the organization has a power of these technologies that they can use. So truly democratizing the way of use of automation across different parts of the organization will really kind of help this to do. So as you kind of think through what does it look like within the finance organization, and how do you want to kind of embrace the hyper automation opportunities? Yes, a lot of organizations will start from robotic process automation. That's the most easiest entry point when you start looking at building quicker efficiencies and effectiveness. But then very soon, you need to have a much wider strategy of how you expand this as you kind of move this across different spectrum. Mike, if you want to just move to the next slide, please. So what does future of finance look like? Where it is. And typical any organization function would have a pyramid construct, right? You've got the CFO, you've got the business partners, and then you have probably shared services or factories, which kind of run transactional processes. Now, if you really look at it, and if you do like a voice of your functional users, a lot of them would come back and say, we need more business partners. We need finance to, provide more insights to the businesses. Therefore, they are able to kind of make decisions faster. We want to digitize processes and so on, right? There's always ask of finance to do more and contribute more to the business operations. But being a finance professional myself, I know it's never easy to kind of take the time away, right? Because you've got to keep the lights on. You've got to keep processes running, and some of these are repeatable, mundane processes, and a lot of finance functions professionals also are not interested in doing it, but you've got to do it, right? But how do you change that? When you look at the future design, we would see this moving from a pyramid structure to a more diamond structure, right? Where you will have most partners who are closer to the businesses, more closer to the functions that you need to kind of work back, whether it is on the growth side or whether it is on the efficiency side that you need to do. You will see a lot. We're seeing leading companies starting to structure themselves in this manner. And then if you see the bottom part of it, a more inverted pyramid around, use of cognitive digital workers or digital workers to kind of help you run a lot of the finance processes and so on, thereby freeing up time within the finance function, individuals to kind of focus more on the strategic areas. Now, this is not going to happen overnight, right? I mean, this transition from where we are right now to where we need to go, it's not going to happen overnight. But I think, leading organizations tend to build a clear strategy and a roadmap to achieve this over the period of time. And I think with COVID, all of us say, COVID's kind of pushed digital and steroids. So which means finance functions cannot be left behind. And therefore, a lot of the programs for digitization within finance, we are seeing in organizations kind of getting accelerated as well. So as you kind of think through where you need to apply, automation within finance, it might be worthwhile to kind of step back, take a more broader strategic view to the finance organization, and really set what the to-be operating model should look like, and then work back in terms of what kind of processes, what kind of areas that we need to digitize. Therefore, you start to get the power of these technologies at scale and at the wider organization benefits level. Mike, if you want one next slide, please. It's always easier said than done, right? We all know what we need to do. We understand the definition. We all understand, there is a strategy that you need to work back with. But there are a number of challenges that are there, right? Finance organizations globally, are faced with a number of issues and a lot of legacy issues as well, which you can't overnight have a few bots changing them and becoming digital from day one, right? So I think the way that what we've seen, and some of it we've kind of laid it down here in this slide, how you can modify or plan your actions around different issues that you might face. So for example, when you look at one of the key elements that a lot of companies face is that they are not able to identify where to automate these processes. I know I need to automate, but I don't know what fits well. I think it's important in those instances where you don't have very clear SOPs or process documentations created, use process discovery and process mining tools, which can give you a better view of how processes are being executed, and therefore you're able to identify them at scale and at faster, right? Don't try this at, technologies kind of improve a lot. Don't try this to do it manually. Try and leverage the the power around it. Second, when you look at processes for automation, you tend to kind of look at it at a task level, and look at to say, there are 10 steps in the process, out of which maybe 5 steps are more manual and more repeatable. Let me kind of automate those processes. Uh, you know, our experience over the last 5-6 years kind of show that automating parts of the processes do not change the way that the processes need to be executed, and you don't get the transformational benefits. So take a look at processes end to end, and try and automate processes from start to finish. Therefore, when you start looking at it, and that's why it's important to not only look at it just from an RPA perspective, but start to look at it as an intelligent automation where you're able to bring other technologies together as well to bring benefits. So end-to-end process is something that a lot of companies now look at benefiting from. Moving away from very transactional task-based automation, where you have kind of amplified the speed of automation in a few tasks, but then when you look at the end-to-end processes, it starts to create bottlenecks, and the upstream processes or the downstream processes are still manual, wherein you don't get the benefit of digitization at all. So I think one of our wisdoms around it is to take a look at things around end-to-end. Right? Third, there are other points that are there, but third, I would focus on the ones around, where benefit realization happens, right? A lot of times, our research also says almost 50% of automation programs within the finance functions do not scale. The reason why that happens is that there are very few sets of areas that you've been able to apply automation in, and you haven't kind of built an end-to-end strategy. Like for example, having a center of excellence to drive efficiency in automation, or to kind of get a larger finance organization to be behind this program to drive this. Something that we've seen that unless you have a very clear roadmap of driving automations, you're not going to be getting the benefits around it. And finally, look at all technologies together. Don't look at single technology, and I think that's something that we've learned the hard way. Mike, you want to move to the next slide? So there are a number of areas in where we are seeing being applied on, be it from transactional processes, which in accounts receivable areas, payable areas, operational finance accounting, whether it's journaling or reconciliations that you would do, whether it is in provisioning, intercompany, bank reconciliation, vendor reconciliation. A number of areas in where automations are being adopted with a lot of areas around expense reimbursement, and even things around account change or master data maintenance activities. We are seeing activities around automation. One of the areas that over the last, I would say about 18-20 months or so, a lot of focus on FP&A, because a lot of data within FP&A is already digitized. There's a lot of work around taking data from different systems, aligning, massaging the data and getting the reports out in a faster, quicker manner. And we are seeing a lot of companies kind of driving automations through those elements as well. Once you start to look at where you can apply automation within finance, you will be able to see like what Mike pointed out, about 50 to 60% of any finance organization are amenable to automation, and then you need to be able to drive this at scale. Therefore, you can move into it. And I'm just gonna, I'm not going to cover individual pointers around it, but what I thought, pick up a couple of examples in this and kind of go through a little bit more in detail, maybe a minute or so in this, and kind of give you a flavor of how you can drive automation at scale within organizations. Mike, if you want to move to the next slide. Yeah. So one of the key processes within the finance area is if you look at most transactional processes, and if you keep away accounts receivable and accounts payable areas, is on the reconciliation and bank reconciliation kind of runs. And if you run it at a global scale, depending upon the number of banks that companies operate in, and in this case, we looked at almost 150, 130 odd plus countries, different application centers and banks that they were operating on, accounts that they were operating on, and there are a number of areas that requires reconciliation around it. Right? Globally, they were spending a lot of time around the entire reconciliation activities, and a simple, if I would say, a rule-based session around where you're able to extract information from the bank statements, generate SAP reports, and this is something that we've used SAP IRPA, which I think Hemant will cover a little bit more, and bringing them together, being able to match the different transaction IDs, the POS numbers, the DD numbers, etc., and then automatically building the bank reconciliation statement. I think huge volumes and repeatable process that can save immense amount of time. Again, when you look at the use cases, sometimes you'll say, this is very straightforward, something that we can solve for. But in reality, a lot of companies haven't even solved for this one. I think it's important that as you think through your strategy, look at areas such as bank reconciliations, intercompany reconciliations as well, where you can able to drive this at scale. Let's take another example. From moving away from a rule-based, bank reconciliation kind of an automation to more end-to-end automation, right? And we use hyper-automation at scale. So, Mike, if you could move on to the next slide. This is a project that we did with one of the large, manufacturing conglomerate, where we are able to kind of bring different technologies together to be able to drive end-to-end AR collections automation. We are able to bring robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, chatbot, and workflows together, along with data insights or analytics as well, to drive better collections efficiency. So the way you look at it is that the collections agent who are looking to kind of follow with customers for collection, they are provided with a chatbot which kind of provides an information on what kind of follow-ups that they need to do on a real-time basis. It uses data from the systems and past information from processing, etc., and suggest different strategies of collections depending upon the customer and what kind of follow-ups that you need to do, whether on call or whether on emails, and depending upon the responses that you're getting back from the customer, what kind of actions that you need to take as well. So using artificial intelligence to make it more predictive, and then you're using RPA to be able to do a lot of the mundane activities to update systems on feedbacks that you receive from the customer or payments that you've received. How can you apply this in the collection side, etc., etc. And then you look at insights around getting the data behind it as well. Something that you can really look at as an end-to-end accounts receivable automation workflow, which again, very powerful when we look at this, right? So something from a rule-based automations, now you're moving into a more end-to-end hyper automation within the finance area, and accounts receivable is an area that kind of highlighted as an example here, as you kind of see this through. So again, just to kind of summarize, I think automation within finance is something that is quite mature. A lot of companies are going after this, starting with RPA, but kind of expanding this. And as you think through your strategies, have a more end-to-end view of processes, and then drive this across the finance level. I know there are some questions in the Q&A. Maybe we'll take that at the end. Maybe I can pass it on to Hemant on the overall IRPA product and solution. We've been working back with SAP quite a lot in this space, and taking this to clients as well. Hemant?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Vijay. Mike. Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon, good morning. I'm Hemant, part of SAP Intelligent RPA product management team, and I look after the GTM across APJ region. So in next 5-10 minutes, I would like to talk about that why SAP Intelligent RPA, what are some of the unique capabilities of the solution from SAP, and how as a SAP we are positioning the complete solution for hyper automation in finance. So next slide, please. So if we look at the hyperautomation journey, and as Vijay touched upon that, for hyperautomation in finance, you don't need only one technology, but you need to look at the multiple technologies. And the stepping stone, of course, is RPA. So first step is to start with RPA, and then how you look at the BPM capabilities. You can include how you can include the conversational AI, or infuse the AI capabilities like OCR services, document processing capabilities, and automate the complete business operations, which works in a fashion like a self-healing, self-learning kind of capability. And we as a SAP have delivered these self-learning, self-healing capability with our SAP business technology platform. Next slide, please. So if you look at the SAP offering, so SAP as a business technology platform is a complete suite, which is offered as a platform as a service. And we have the complete capability right from process mining. So where you get the insight into the processes, and then you automate those processes using RPA. You extend those processes using workflow and extension capability. If you need the integration between multiple applications, then there is a cloud platform integration suite. And of course, the complete AI capability, where there are some AI ready applications, some are AI business services like document extraction services, and some offer the complete AI ML data fabric. So in case, say, for example, your data scientist would like to write their own ML algorithm, then there is a capability. So there's a complete package which is offered as a SAP business technology platform available to you, and it caters to all those automation scenarios, right from account receivable to account payable to compliance and disclosure management. Yeah, we have a lot of case studies coming in the next subsequent sessions as well, where we will touch upon the specific areas of the finance. So today, I'll just, next slide, please. I'll, of course, touch upon that how SAP Intelligent RPA is different. So one example is that how do you get like right from process insight to process automation. So as a business, if we have a complete record to report process, and I would like to analyze as a business that which are the areas for each of my processes, what are different variants, how the processes are working today in my business, then I have the process intelligence. I need the process mining or process intelligence capability. And that's where SAP Business Process Intelligence with a Signavio offers the complete capability and insight, where you get to see which processes are working. If certain processes, if you would like to do a scenario analysis, for example, if I automate within a account receivable process these 10 steps, then what is the kind of saving I'm going to get? What is the kind of impact it is going to have on end-to-end processing timing, right? So all these capabilities are available as part of the BTP. And business process intelligence, once you mine the data, then you can move on to utilizing the SAP Intelligent RPA, or the tool which helps you automate these processes by creating software robots. So software robots based on the manual repetitive task which we identify in the using the process intelligence capability, we can utilize the automation capability to create those bots. There are some out of the box bots available as well, and I'm going to talk about soon that as well. So this is the one example that how you automate right from insight, then you automate using the RPA capability. And of course, you can always infuse different technologies like conversational AI, like AI business services, depending on the use case and the requirement, right? And some processes may be simple enough to automate with the RPA. In some process, you may need some intelligence capability. So depending on the use case, end-to-end, which you analyze, you can utilize the different parts of the technology. One question, next slide, which is asked by, and which is very common and asked by the most of the people, that why SAP Intelligent RPA? So just to give you a little bit context and the history, SAP acquired a company called Contexter, which was into the RPA space for more than a decade in late 2018. And what we did when we acquired this company who already had the capability of automating any application, we brought in some native technology differentiator. So by including, say, for example, native connectors for SAP GUI, SAP Fiori element, we brought that unmatched capability. So while SAP Intelligent RPA works seamlessly for non-SAP applications and SAP applications alike, but when it comes to the automation surrounding SAP applications, be it your SAP ECC, SAP S4HANA, or SuccessFactor or Ariba, there is an unmatched capability which is available with the SAP Intelligent RPA. The second point is around the content. So we, of course, differentiate greatly from the technology aspect, but when you look at the content as well, the best practice content around S4HANA, for example, from the finance perspective, is coming from the S4HANA product management team, which is a pre-packaged best practice content, and you can utilize this out of the box. What it does is it reduces your implementation time and gives you more ROI. So you go to the automation, you can start using automation very quickly. And as with any automation, the advantage with RPA automation is that you start realizing the benefit from day one. The moment your automations are running your systems or business users are utilizing those automation capability, you start realizing the benefit. The another differentiation, and I think we touched upon, we looked at the SAP Business Technology Platform as a complete suite of technology. So you can start with RPA, you can infuse the AI capability, you can look at utilizing cloud platform workflow capability. So the complete suite of technology and services is at your hand, and you can utilize that as and when required, right? So based on the use cases, based on the requirement, the complete suite of technology is available from SAP. When we look at the another angle, so this was more on the technology and content side, but the another angle is the enterprise grade capability, performance, scalability. So to give you an example, SAP itself deployed SAP Intelligent RPA for financial closing, and we deployed this within 6 months in more than 122 countries. As a listed company, our own financial closing happens every month automatically without manual intervention, right? So that's the enterprise grade capability when we talk about the scaling. So when you scale across your finance department, right, that's where you need such stability, robustness, and that's what SAP offers. It offers a faster execution time, and we have participated in many anonymous challenges like rpachallenge.com, where bots created using other technology vis-a-vis SAP Intelligent RPA perform 8 to 20 times faster. What does it mean for you? It means that you will require less number of bots to perform the same number of automations, which means again adding value from your ROI perspective, right? So it reduces overall, if we look at it, reduces your total cost of automation. And there is another angle to it, which is the security and the complete cloud-based solution. So this is more around the how you can scale when you, even if you start small today, but you can scale it to an enterprise grade level, and that's where you get that capability from the SAP. Next slide, please. And lastly, when I talk about the technology, content, performance differentiation, I also want to touch upon the pricing model, give you a little bit flavor how we are different compared to other RPA tools when it comes to the commercial aspect as well. So we have pricing based on unattended and attended bot, that also on concurrent. What does concurrent session means is then depending on the how many parallel bots you are running at the same time, you get those many bots, or you subscribe for that many bots and use it, right? With each unattended bot or with each attended bot, you of course get a 24-hour capability or capacity, which you can use for same process, multiple process in sequence, etc. Right? So you get that capability out of the box. We do not charge anything for the design capability. So we have low code, no code based cloud studio, which is meant for the citizen developers or functional consultants as well, who can create the automation very quickly without knowledge about the coding. And we also have a desktop studio, which is for the expert developers who would like to play around with the code and would like to tinker around with the code, infuse some more scripting, etc. So then there is a desktop studio available. We do not charge for the central orchestration and monitoring. So there is a component through which you can create different environments like dev, QA, prod. You can orchestrate the bots, software robots into different business users, laptop, desktop. There is no pricing, separate pricing for it. It's on the cloud. And that's where you do not need a dedicated infrastructure also to run this central component. So we differentiate from that aspect as well, vis-a-vis other tools where you need to invest in dedicated infrastructure and manage it. So here you get the complete freedom in terms of how you scale. You can start with 5, you can go to 20 and maybe 100 day after tomorrow. So this is how it gives you the cloud-based model or hybrid model gives you the capability. Another aspect which is very specific to SAP Digital Core. So if you have processes surrounding SAP Digital Core, SAP ERP like S4HANA or ECC, if you use SAP Intelligent RPA vis-a-vis other tool, you need not worry about the indirect access license. So for example, if you use any other tool and it calls an SAP S4HANA API to create a finance object like a journal ledger entry or do any other posting, you need to worry about you need to have the indirect access license or digital access. Vis-a-vis if you use the same process you utilize with SAP Intelligent RPA, calling the S4HANA API to create that financial document or posting, you need not worry about the indirect access or the digital access license, right? So this is in nutshell why SAP Intelligent RPA is important and how you can utilize the capability as part of the overall SAP business technology platform, which is a platform as a service offering, and RPA is one of the service as part of the BTP. So that's all from my side. Over to Mike. Thank you.
Great, thanks Hemant, and thanks Vijay. But look, before we go down into to talking about some of the questions and to get some feedback from you via the poll, I just really wanted to talk to you about some of the other upcoming workshops that we've got here. We will put this, we will make this slide deck available for you, so you've got the registration links there, but please keep an eye out. We will be promoting this via social media, LinkedIn and various other avenues. So, but as Hemant said before, and Vijay, we've got some really interesting use cases coming up, particularly around shared service planning and advanced financial closing from that perspective. So stay tuned on that one. That's over the next future 3 months. So we haven't sort of tried to cram it all into 1 week or 2 weeks. We give you a little bit of space in between, just so you can have a little bit of time to think about which ones are relevant for you. I will open it up now to Q&A. So one of the questions we've got here is, finance people are naturally concerned about compliance, tax and legal. How does automation satisfy the finance staff that all tax is recorded in full in time? So that's a very topical question at the moment, particularly with a lot of countries and authorities digitalizing their tax processes from that perspective. I don't know. Hemant, Vijay, is that something that you would probably be better off answering from that perspective?
I can take that up.
Okay.
I think tax is quite an interesting process itself, because it is it's not something that you do regularly, but it's an important set of activities from a compliance standpoint. And across organizations, we see tax professionals are always at very lean. you don't have large tax teams kind of operating on, because it requires a lot of work. I think the way we see automation is actually the largest. We see automation applied in tax areas quite a lot. So, for example, within EY as well, we do offer tax services. A lot of automations that we have delivered are within our internal tax operations. And we see that in two areas, because one, we know that compliance bots are 100% right every time. So compliance never missed. Once you configure a bot to check for a certain amount of compliances, it checks 24/7 and all the transactions, 100% of the transactions, which is something that, from a, again, compliance standpoint, we see it's very important. And second is, you can, we are able to globally scale this as well. Across countries, complex rules that needs to be defined. We're able to bring that. So I think tax actually in EY world is one of the first areas that we picked up for automation.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Hemant, the next question might be for you, and I think you've probably pretty much answered it anyway, but is AI ML, can that be implemented on ECC?
Yeah, so essentially, when we look at if you look at the embedded capability of AI ML, and as a SAP, what we are doing, there are two aspects to bringing intelligence. One is embedded intelligence, which what we are doing with our latest application like SAP S/4HANA. When you look at that, a lot of embedded capability from automation aspects, AI ML perspective are already built in. But to answer your question around the ECC, which is a legacy ERP application, yes, because outside when you are playing around the RPA and the data with the ERP, ECC, the data is outside the ECC, and that's where you can apply the AI ML capability before entering or the data into the ECC system, right? And when you automate the processes with ECC, it could be API based, like BAPI based, or it could be screen based. So the data AI ML capability you can of course apply before processing or entering the data into the ECC. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Hemant. I'm just conscious of time. We've got a couple of more minutes. There's an interesting question actually in the chat from that perspective, and I'm not quite sure whether we can answer this today, but is there any automation solution deployed for revenue recognition reporting as per ASC 606? So I'm not quite sure who to pitch that one at. Is that a VJ or a Hemant?
Yeah, I can answer that. So I think in SAP S/4HANA, specifically like cloud solution or even SAP BYD, the core ERP for the SMB, we have this capability to handle this revenue recognition. In terms of the ECC capability, when you're looking at the order to cash cycle, specifically unbilled posting, yes, you can build the robots to handle right from your creation of the sales order or posting the goods issue, etc. So you have a complete order to cash process can be automated using the SAP Intelligent RPA. In your case, if you have very specific, we are happy to get in touch with you after the webinar and then look into this process and support you in automating this. Yeah.
Okay, so and that would apply across multiple instances, multiple ERPs as well?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, perfect. I think we've answered that question around machine learning and AI on ECC. So what if it's not an S4? I think that answers the question. Can you? Yes, we will share the link to the upcoming events. Didn't receive the poll window. Okay, well, I can't quite answer that one. So this one here, as AI space of machine learning and machine reasoning is still not really mature or ready to prove for full embrace by the Office of the CFO office, what is the USP that you can share further? Wow. Does that make sense? Hemant or VJ?
Yeah, I mean, AI globally is still kind of improving, but I think over the last few years, I think the pace of change has been quite significant. the kind of techniques that are being used have also kind of improved significantly. Yes, AI is not 100% correct, right? I mean, it's a game of probability and correlation and so on. So therefore, there is a certain element of accuracy levels that you need to live with. But more and more that we see as the technology improves, the efficiencies are much now, or the accuracies are much better than what a human would be able to do, which I think is again something very interesting that we'll do. So I think it's CFOs generally want 100% accurate on everything. And AI has some code to cover that. But I think we're seeing elements where it's much better than what humans can do. So I think there's no reason for us to not talk.
All right, I think one more in the Q&A just popped in. Can we have the Jam link? Yes, obviously we will share that with you. Yes. Okay, I think, look, I think we're right at the top of the hour. We've actually gone a little couple of minutes over. But first, let me thank Vijay and Hemant for their great insights into how our IRPA can be used within the finance world or the finance functions. And I look forward to the next couple of sessions that we put together. Thank you, Vijay, very, very much for your time. And thank you to EY. Thank you, Hemant, for your time. And thank you very much for the audience for participating and asking some really, really good questions. We will be sharing the information here today. I wish you all a good afternoon and look forward to catching up with you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Vijay.
Bye-bye.